3 weeks passed after that evening by the river. Life, as it always does, quietly returned to its ordinary rhythm. The wheat had been harvested, leaving the fields golden beneath the August sun. The evenings were still warm, though summer no longer carried the excitement it had only weeks before. Even the crickets sounded softer now, as if they already knew autumn was somewhere beyond the hills. I often found myself thinking about him, not because I expected answers. At my age, I've learned that answers rarely arrive when we ask for them. Sometimes they simply appear while we're busy living. One afternoon, I was repairing an old wooden fence behind my house when I heard someone call my name. I looked up. It was him. He was carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. "You still fixing that old fence?" he asked. I smiled. "It gives me an excuse to stay outside." He laughed. It wasn't the laughter of a man who had forgotten his troubles. It was the laughter of someone who had finally stopped arguing with them. For a while we stood there, watching the wind move through the tall grass beyond the orchard. Then he looked at me. "You were right." "About what?" "I wasn't looking for her." I leaned against the fence. "So, you saw her?" He nodded. "We had coffee." I waited. After all these years, I'd learned that people tell the truth in their own time. "We talked for almost an hour," he said. "Mostly about ordinary things." He smiled faintly. "Funny, isn't it? 20 years ago, I thought I'd have 1,000 things to tell her." "And did you?" "No." "What did you talk about?" "The weather," he laughed at himself. "Her son." "My old job." "The bakery that closed years ago." He paused. And then we just sat there. I could almost picture it. 2 people who once believed they would grow old together, now sitting across from each other like 2 travelers who happened to miss the same train. "She stirred her coffee the same way she always used to," he said quietly. "She still looks down when she's searching for the right words." He smiled again. "But she smiles slower now." "So do I." The breeze carried the scent of freshly cut hay across the yard. Neither of us spoke. "There was something strange," he continued. "I kept waiting to feel angry." "Were you?" He shook his head. "No. I kept waiting to feel that old pain." "And?" "It never came." He looked out across the fields. "What came instead was gratitude." I looked at him. "Gratitude?" He nodded. "For one ordinary conversation." He took a slow sip of coffee before speaking again. "You know what surprised me the most?" "What?" "I didn't miss her while I was sitting there." He looked into his cup for a long moment. "I missed the boy who used to believe that loving someone was enough to keep them forever." Those words stayed with me, not because they were wise, because they were true. The older we become, the more we discover that our hearts don't always grieve people. Sometimes they grieve unfinished versions of ourselves. "Before we left," he said, "she looked at me and asked why I never married." I smiled. "What did you tell her?" The truth? And what was that? I told her life simply kept happening. He laughed softly. I didn't want her to carry that weight. I nodded. Some truths are spoken to free another person. Others are spoken to free ourselves. He finished the last sip of his coffee and placed the empty cup on the fence beside mine. I thought meeting her again would change my life. Did it? Not in the way I expected. He looked toward the road leading back to the village. It didn't give me another beginning. It gave me an ending. We stood there without another word. The wind kept moving through the fields. Somewhere in the distance, children were laughing. Life had already continued. After he left, I noticed he'd forgotten his empty coffee cup on the fence. I reached for it, then stopped. For reasons I couldn't explain, I left it there until the following morning. Sometimes letting go doesn't happen in one conversation. Sometimes it happens quietly, one ordinary moment at a time.